Penny Fun Facts. That's our discussion today. It's all about pennies, some things that I'm sure you'd like to know. Be right back. Hi, welcome to Financially Intact. Making money is easy, keeping it is the hard part. Let's start with, why is a penny called a penny? Actually, that one's quite simple. Back in when our country was first founded, of course, the main currency that was circulating throughout the colonies was the British currency. The Brits had, still to this day, a coin called the pence. That was their lowest denomination coin, and that was fondly referred to as the penny. So when America decided to start printing its own money in about 1792, they also adopted the penny. However, legally, under the U.S. Treasury rules and laws, the coin is referred to as the cent. We nicknamed it the penny, as did the British nickname the pence the penny. So that's where the name the penny comes from. Something that is a little bit interesting about the penny, though, is a little bit more of its history, and that hundreds of years ago, back in the colonies times and even before that, the British penny was actually made of silver, and a penny was actually, it was mostly silver anyway, 95% silver, thereabouts, and a penny weighed 1/240th of a pound of silver, and that was the value of a penny back then. Of course, it's changed quite drastically since then. But there you have it. That's how the name penny came about, and a little bit of history about the penny. So now, let's look at the history of the American penny. In the early days, we actually had a coin called a half cent. We minted that coin from 1792 to 1857. And as you can see, this are pictures of it right here. As you can see, it said half cent on the back. It was actually much bigger than our current day pennies. I'll show you the size here in just a minute because it's the same as the large cent. But as you can see, right here it says half cent. That was on the back. On the front of it, over the years, they changed the design a couple times. Some of the earlier ones had the hair sort of like this. This was called Lady Liberty. And it was on quite a few of our coins, actually. And then later on, it had a little bit different design. You'll see there were 13 stars also around it, which of course stood for the original 13 colonies. Then after that, we had the large cent. Let me show you that. So then during the same years from, like I said, 1792 to 1857, we also produced this coin here, and this was called the large cent. As you can see, why they call it large cent is here's a current day penny. This was one of the original pennies, and therefore that's why they're called the large cents. Now it's interesting that we should bring up the large cent right now, because this is the new contest that we're holding till November 10th. We'll tell you the details at the end of this video, so stick with us. But this is an 1855. It's in very good condition, and it's currently worth about $28. Like I said, we had this coin till about, well, right up until 1857. After that, we switched to the smaller cents. Let me show you some of those. So once they stopped making the large cent, they started making the smaller pennies, and the first issue of the smaller pennies was actually called the Flying Eagle. You can see that right here. Now this particular design only lasted for 3 years, and then they moved on to the Indian head penny, which we'll show you in just a minute. As you can see, the 1 cent on the back, it had the wreath around it and the Flying Eagle. Like I said, they only produced that one for 3 years, 1856 through 1858. In 1858, they changed it to the Indian head penny. And they actually did 1859 through 1909. This was the next American penny. As you can see, they really didn't change much on the back. It still had the wreath to it, but we had the Indian head on the front. So then in 1909, that was the beginning of the Lincoln pennies, and we called the first one the wheat pennies. So this is 1909 to 1958. And it's called the wheat pennies because these two little things on the back side here are representative of shafts of wheat. And then, of course, the face of Lincoln was on this. And we're going to get back to this in just a second because there's a really good story about the Lincoln and how this part was designed. So anyway, like I said, this went up to 1958. Then in 1959, we still had Lincoln on the front, but the reverse side got changed to a picture of the Lincoln Memorial. So then we stuck with this one from 1959 all the way to 2008. In 2008, they started doing some state pennies, so different states were on the backs of the pennies, and that went on for a few years, I think to 2012, somewhere in there. And then, since then, we've had what's called the shield penny. As you can see, there's now a shield on the back. Now, the really other interesting fact to know about all these pennies is up until 1982, so that's about halfway through the memorial pennies, up until 1982, the pennies were made mostly of copper. So that's all the pennies, the half pennies, the large cent, the Indian heads, the early Lincolns, they were all copper, and mostly copper, anywhere between about 85% and 94% copper. So copper pennies are actually worth about 2 cents a piece. So if you want to double your money real quick, get 100% return on your investment, just go accumulate a whole lot of copper pennies at a penny a piece, and they'll instantly be worth 2 cents a piece. And just to show you that, here's the calculation. Hopefully you can see that okay. Right in here, the meltdown value, that's what it says right here, meltdown value for 1909 through 1982 copper cent on October 30th, 2020 is just a little bit over 2 cents each. Now, don't go overboard. Not all copper pennies are only worth 2 cents each. Some of them are worth much, much more than that. This is one example. This is the 1909 SVDB. So if we zoom in on this a little bit for you, you can see the S shows up right under the date of 1909. The VDB actually shows up here at the bottom. It's a little hard to see on this one. I'll show you a better picture of that here in just a second. But on the other hand, also with the 1909 SVDB, there was a memorial penny made of it. And I'll get back to the story here in just a second. But I want you to know there's a huge difference here. As you can see, some of them say they're only selling for $2, $5, $2, stuff like that. Those are the fake ones. Those aren't the real SVDB pennies. The real ones are more like this. They sell in the $700, $800, $900 range, depending on the grade and the condition of the coin. For the fake ones, and they're not really fake ones, but they're, like I said, they're a memorial thing. Somebody put them out. And so as you can see on here, here's that VDB you can see. And this is the way it looks on the real ones, too, as far as the VDB is concerned. But here it says, 0.999 fine copper. Well, of course, the real one didn't say that. It said United States of America right here. So these are just something put out by the mint as a collector's item. It's not the true SVDB pennies. So when you go and look at it, the VDB actually stands for Victor David Brenner. And so he was the person who designed the New Lincoln pennies. And because he designed it, he decided to put his initials on the back, the VDB, Victor David Brenner. Well, because it was so prominent on the back of the penny, a few people complained about that and weren't too thrilled about that, so the mint, in response, actually took the VDB off. They only printed pennies with the VDB for about a half a year. And the S stands for the San Francisco Mint, and it printed the fewest of all the mints. Therefore, it's a very collectible item because there just weren't very many in circulation. So after that, they rethought it 8 years, 9 years later. Finally, back in 1918, they decided to put the VDB back on the penny, but not in the same spot. And so to this day, if you take out a penny and you look real close and get yourself a magnifying glass, you can see that the VDB still stands on the pennies. And I'm going to zoom in on this one here, where you have these little arrows right here. That's pointing to the VDB. The VDB initials are right under it. And like I said, you could pick up any penny today and look at it, and you'll still see that the VDB initials are on there. The point was, though, look at your dates, look at the condition of those copper pennies, because some of them are worth a whole lot more than 2 cents. The majority are not, especially those from the 1920s through 1982. They're worth basically 2 cents. There was one year, 1943, where we had steel pennies, and they're also worth just about 2 cents. So there you have it. That's the story of the American-made U.S. penny. So I do want to mention real quickly here, it is illegal to deface or destroy American currency. That includes the penny. Now, a lot of people obviously don't pay attention to that rule. I've seen people do it right in front of me at certain coin shows where they're trying to sell their little machines to actually melt down different metals. So, like I said, it is illegal for us to do it. It is not illegal for us to sell it to somebody else who might do it. That's their problem then, not ours. On the other hand, the penny is probably on its way out. Now, I imagine the day will come where the penny is no longer legal tender, no longer considered an American currency. It's already happened in Canada. They no longer have the penny or use the penny or mint the penny. I imagine America's not too far behind. So once the penny is no longer legal currency, then of course you can do with it what you will. So it's still not a bad idea. Collect them now at a penny a piece and sell them someday for 2 cents or more. Now that we've talked about the history of pennies a little bit, let's talk about some of the fun facts of pennies and why we should show them more respect than we probably do. There's one thing out there called the Penny Challenge. Goes like this. It's really quite cool, and there's other videos about it. You might want to go check those out, because this is not my original idea. I got this from somebody else. But anyway, with the Penny Challenge, the very first day you put 1 penny in the piggy bank. The next day you put 2 pennies in the piggy bank. The next day you put 3 pennies in the piggy bank, on and on and on. And you do this for 1 year. So on day 365 you put in $3.65. Guess how much money you have at the end of that 1 year? Just putting in a few pennies a day, all the way through the course of the year. At the end of the year, you will end up with $667.95. Now that's quite a chunk of change. With $667, you can actually do something. You can invest that into buying some silver, or maybe buying a little bit of gold, or maybe even into buying a few stocks. And I know some stocks are higher priced than that, and that brings up a good point that our next video that will be coming out in a few days here, just about a week, is actually going to be about buying fractional shares. How can you buy just a little bit of stock when you don't have enough money to buy the whole thing? So that'll be on the next video. We hope you stay tuned and come back for that one. So anyway, like I said, it adds up to quite a little bit of chunk of change. Now, my absolute favorite penny calculation is this. If you take 1 penny and double your money 30 times, how much money will you end up with? Start with 1 penny, and so it goes 1 penny, then 2 cents, then 4 cents, then 8 cents, then 16, 32, on and on. In the very end, you will end up with $10,737,418.24. Over $10 million from doubling a penny 30 times. So that's one of my first ones. So I hope from here on out that whenever you see a penny, you get one in change, you see one laying on the ground, that you look at it a little bit differently. You look at it as possibly the start of a $667 savings account, or the very first step to getting all the way up to $10 million. So now we need to talk about the contest. Since there are 100 pennies and $1, I have picked a number between 1 and 100. You need to put your guess in the comments below and also add a letter behind that number. The letter will be the tiebreaker. So just for example, you might pick 23C. That's what you need to do. Pick a number between 1 and 100, put a letter behind it. We're going to run this contest through the 10th of November. On the 11th, we will announce the winner, and the winner, of course, will win this 1855 large cent worth about $28. If you like our videos, please do like them. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you again soon.